Stocks Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for July 16th, 2020, and I got 7:37 p.m. And here it is. And then I'm going to go through a roll call of just commissioners. I do ask, though, I'll get into the meeting rules and guide in 1 minute. I do ask that if you're not a commissioner or the applicant or the applicant's representatives for the agenda items, to keep yourself mute so that way we don't get lots of feedback and noise in the background. So I'm going to go through the roll call here. Just let me know if you're present. Joe Adaletta?
Present.
I know Mr. Blackmer is, I don't think he's here. Are you here, Mark? He told me he was likely not going to be here tonight. Sid Blodgett?
Present.
Gail Dickinson? Nancy Frazier?
Present.
Jeff Gordon? I'm here. Jeff Marcotte?
Here.
David Morse?
Here.
Doug Porter?
Here.
Fred Rich?
Here.
Dwight Reinowitz?
Here.
And Tim Young. I don't believe Tim can join us tonight. So I believe we have 9 people. So actually we can, I'll note that. So we have a quorum. Excellent. So meeting rules and guides. I know commissioners hear this every meeting, and if any of members of the public have been in our Zoom meetings, this won't be new, but I'm going to state this so everyone understands we're meeting via Zoom, according to the Governor's Executive Order 7B and following 7I. This is a virtual meeting. It is live, so there is audio and video. If you are going to, and I have this right here in a second, if you are wanting to speak, you have, just like any other meeting, you have to be recognized by the chair. I do ask that if you would like to speak, you have to use that hand, is that what it is, that hand icon? Yeah. So that way we can know who's asking to speak. But we'll recognize folks accordingly. I do ask that only one person speak at a time if you could, just so we can make certain we can hear everybody. If you are wanting to use the Otter live transcript, you can do that. There's a button at the top of Zoom that you click. It will fill the whole screen, but you should have a way of splitting the screen so you can see that live transcript. And the other side, you can see the live video. Also, if you're calling in by phone, if any of you are doing that, you can hit *9 so we can see if you're raising your hand to speak. All other provisions of our meetings hold. So we do have a public hearing tonight. We're going to follow the rules of a public hearing that we usually follow. The non-public hearing items, we follow that as well. Other than certain logistics as far as receipt of documents and deadlines, and any documents we do not have, even if they've been submitted but submitted late. After deadlines, I'll go over before the public hearing how we handle that, which basically is we really can't be receiving new documents tonight because we are not going to be able to get them posted the way that they need to be as far as for the purposes of commissioners to see them and everybody else. But I'll get into that with some public hearing rules. Otherwise, that should be everything for me for that, meeting rules and guides. Just one quick, actually I'll do that under chair's report. Designation of alternates. I believe we have 9 commissioners, if I'm correct here. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see, 1, 2. So we have actually 9 commissioners here today. So we actually will be able to seat the 3 alternates, which would also include being seated for the public hearing. I'll just ask if any, I have no problem seating the alternates. Do any of you as alternates have any conflicts that you won't be able to be seated for any agenda item tonight? Just so that I'll note it now for purposes of our seating. Okay, So that would mean then that we'll see tonight Nancy Frazier, Doug Porter, and Dwight Reinowitz. Yes, Nancy?
I'm sorry. It just dawned on me. I think I may have a conflict with, I don't think it's part of the public hearing though, with anything having to do with Rusty Relic.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just note that for that item when we get to it, that you'll be recused
Okay, thank you.
and seat you for everything else. I don't remember the last time we actually seated all 3 alternates at the same time. So I think this will call for a very special party.
Yeah.
So, I think they decorated the Inn at Woodstock Hill specifically for that. So we can go up there right after tonight's meeting and celebrate.
Jeff, this is Doug Porter.
Yep.
I'll have to excuse myself from the Midcoff subdivision on Brickyard Road. Any discussions on that?
Okay, so I will note that when we get to that item. Thank you for letting me know, Doug.
And Jeff,
Yeah,
Dave Morse, I'm gonna have to recuse myself from the Rusty Relic also.
yep. And we will note that as well when we get to that agenda item. So my chair's report is going to be very simple. Thank you, everybody, on the commission for continuing to come to our meetings, so to speak. Our meetings twice a week. Also, thank you to staff for the work that's getting done. There's still lots of work that gets done behind the scenes. So as I can very much attest to. So thank you, Tina and Delia, Cindy for doing the minutes, and also Crystal. I know we've been keeping you busy with lots of uploading of documents and helping to run our Zoom meetings. And also Christine for doing the land use clerk stuff that she does. And I also want to say a thank you to our town attorney, Rich Roberts, who puts up with us when we have to contact him and ask him questions. So we appreciate that, Rich. Otherwise, one item that I'll get to, there is an agenda item that was put on relative to a proposed subdivision, which is agenda item 7. However, we don't have finalization of the required documents yet. They're in the works, but they have not been made yet available before we reach the deadline, and also our deadline to be able, for a governor's order, to post things online. So that item, we're just going to need to move to our next meeting, which I'll get into. I just wanted to let people know about that agenda item issue. Otherwise, we do get to citizens' comments. This is for any members of the public who wish to make a comment, not on any agenda item and not relative to the public hearing. Hearing none, we will move to meeting minutes. We have 2 sets of meeting minutes. We have the June 18th regular meeting and the July 2nd meeting minutes. So what's the wish? Yeah, but I'm dealing with meeting minutes right now. So what's the wish of the commission?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, David Morse.
So a motion by Jeff Marcotte, seconded by David Morse to approve the meeting minutes. That's for both of them. That's the motion on the table. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to go through the roll. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Gail Dickinson, not here, Nancy Frazier,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte,
Aye.
David Morse,
Aye.
Doug Porter,
Abstained.
Fred Rich,
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And I know Mr. Young is not here, so that passes unanimously. With the one abstention noted. It's here. And check this off. Otherwise, we have, well, the new business item, as far as the documents that we need are in process of being finalized, as I mentioned, so we will have them ready for our next meeting. We do right now have scheduled the August what's the first Thursday of August here? Is that the, let me look it up. I gotta get to the other screen to find the August calendar.
The 20th?
No, the first one would be then
The
the
6th?
the 6th.
August 6th.
So we have that listed as a meeting. Remember, we were going to be doing planning meetings, but all of that's been thrown off of it given where we are. So if we wanted to, we can always table this item to our August 6th meeting. This is a 3-lot subdivision, which is considered a minor subdivision. It does not require a public hearing. So we don't need to wait until the third Thursday. So that is our option, either the 6th or the 20th. What would the commission wish to do as far as which meeting?
We might as well do the 6th so they can
Okay,
move forward on it.
and is there a second?
I'll second.
Who was that? Joe?
Yes.
Okay. So motion by David Moore, seconded by Joe Adaletta to table agenda item 7 to the August 6th meeting. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta? Joe, do you vote?
Aye.
Sid Blodgett?
Aye.
Nancy Frazier?
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte?
Aye.
David Morris?
Aye.
Doug Porter?
Aye.
Fred Rich?
Aye.
And Dwight Reinowitz? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Dwight.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That passes unanimously. Actually, let me check that off. Done it. The next is, we have 2 different old businesses. Non-residential zoning permit, we have 1. This is agenda item 8A. This is Salon 283, it's actually 283 Route 169. Unit number 2, change of business from therapist to hair salon. This is for a business permit. Tina, you handle this? Is there anything from a staff point of view if you wanted to, or if there isn't? Okay, so it's a complete application and fees have been paid.
Yes.
Okay. Is the applicant here? If so, you're welcome to speak. You're not required to. It is an opportunity.
Hello, I'm here.
If you can please state your name for the record, first and last name. Thank you for being here.
Hi, yes, my name is Amy LaPrade. Thank you for having me.
Is there anything you wish to say about your application? You don't have to. It's pretty straightforward.
No, it is pretty straightforward. Yes, I am fine with everything so far. I'd like to get it going.
I'll open it up to commissioners. What's the will of the commission?
I move we approve the business change?
Is that you, David? That was
Yes, David, sorry.
Is there a second?
Second,
Who was that?
Jeff Marcotte.
Okay. If you don't mind, just let us know your name so that way we can know who, because we have multiple screens up. So motion by David Moore, seconded by Jeff Marcotte to approve the non-residential zoning permit as presented. Is there any discussion?
Just a discussion, comment,
Yeah.
Jeff, about just making sure the applicant is aware of sign and lighting regulations for new businesses, or for any businesses.
Yes, I am aware of that. I already am an independent contractor out of the Woodstock area, so I am aware of all of the lighting issues and signage, yes.
Excellent.
You can just state your name for the record. We just need to make certain we know who's talking. Don't mind, as the applicant, if you could just state your name for the record again that you just talked. I think we're muted. Okay, so I'll just note it was the applicant who spoke again, because we just want to make certain we have everything clear on the video and audio. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Nancy Frazier,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte,
Aye.
David Morse,
Aye.
Doug Porter,
Aye.
Fred Rich,
Aye.
and Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
That so passes. Congratulations. Thank you for being part of the business community.
Thank
And we'll all show up tomorrow morning for our haircuts,
Okay.
hairstyling and whatever.
No shampoos or blow dries right now.
And Tina, you'll do whatever magic you do through the office, and all that stuff will be finalized. We will note that for the record. All right, we move to the next one here. Okay, the next one is, let me get the right file. We have two old business parts, just because we have a public hearing that has an old business attached to it. Old business part one, this is agenda item 9A. This is number SP 641-06-25, 599-169 Rusty Relic mixed use, which is retail store and residential uses. This, and I'll note for the record that David Morse and Nancy Frazier are recused for this agenda item. If the commission remembers, at our last meeting, we did make a zoning regulation interpretation that this application, which is, can indeed proceed to a public hearing. So our job tonight is to schedule a public hearing. We are going to need to post it and the usual stuff. So that would have to be for our August, was it 20th? Is that the third Thursday?
It is.
Yeah, so that would have to be to start a public hearing on August 20th. I'll leave it to the what the commission wishes to do on this item.
Make a motion, Joseph Adaletta, to assign a public hearing for the August 20th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second by Doug Porter.
Sorry, what? Was that you, Doug?
Yes, second
Okay.
by Doug Porter.
So motion by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Doug Porter to schedule a public hearing for the Rusty Relic mixed-use special permit for August 20th. And as far as the start time, I believe we've been doing them at 7:45 p.m. Is that's okay with you, Joe and Doug, for the motion?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on the motion to schedule a public hearing? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte,
Aye.
Doug Porter,
Aye.
Fred Rich. Are you muted, Fred?
Sorry about that. Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
So that so passes, and we will deal with the usual stuff behind the scenes to schedule it and put all the notices and that type of stuff. Okay, we'll note that then. The next. This one we've dealt with before multiple times over many, many years, but we do have one final thing that has come up about it, and we'll explain it. This is agenda item 9B. This is the former, which has been voided, Minshaw subdivision on Brickyard Road, other than there are 3 remaining houses that kind of are their own subdivision. This was an approved subdivision that was number 492-04-06. This is a decision about required open space set aside. The reason that this has come up, if commissioners may remember, there's been some discussions over the year that because this was an approved subdivision that was going to happen in 3 phases, only the first phase proceeded, and only three houses were built off of a common driveway. But all the rest didn't happen, and we had no choice. And the subdivision owner understood this, that we had to void this. So the subdivision is voided, but there was discussion several times about how do we handle the required open space set aside, given the fact that now the majority of the land has reverted back to just its original lot minus the acreage that went into the 3 houses and its common driveway. We did have discussion with Attorney Roberts about this, how would we handle it. And what we would need to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, I want to make certain I'm getting this correct. I have notes to make certain I got this correct. This subdivision was approved using the 2004 regulations, which, having read through the regulations from 2004, this was at the time per the meeting minutes back then, which were minutes dated September 2nd, 2004, of which we have copies. This was approved as an open space subdivision. And at the time, an open space subdivision did not allow any fee in lieu, but did require 40% open space set aside. And if we look at the calculation for the amount of acreage that has gone into the 3 housing lots that were built and are lived in, these are lots 10B, 10C, and 10K. That sums to 4.04 acres. And if the math is correct, 40% of that means that there should be a provision of 1.62 acres set aside as open space. And Rich Roberts, you can speak better than me as far as what legally the commission needs to do to make it noted, I guess, on the land record relative to how we have to handle this, because I know that property that is remaining is under consideration to be sold. So I'll let you weigh in if you don't mind as far as what exactly the commission needs to do to legalize that required set aside of that 1.62 acres.
I mean, I think this was a question where you're kind of, for lack of a better phrase, making it up as you go along because there is no good guidance on it. So what I had recommended in correspondence to the chair, to Tina and Delia, was that since the remaining property that was left unsubdivided is now essentially other land of Minchoff and not an approved building lot, that you put some kind of notation into the land records that at the time that property is either sought to be further subdivided or modified into an approved building lot, that there be a requirement that the open space that would have been required for the 3 lots that had previously been sold be set aside out of the balance of that property, as well as, for example, if it's further subdivided, whatever open space is required in conjunction with the further subdivision, so that basically they don't get a free pass by virtue of having the subdivision lapsed, but that this requirement of the dedication of open space be attached to this additional property, and that it can't be turned either into a building lot or an additional subdivision without making an accommodation for the 40% set aside that was required for those 3 lots that have been conveyed out.
So that's where we stand with it. I know over some years we've wrestled with exactly what to do with it. I think, Rich, what you propose is a very reasonable and effective way of trying to handle this. This is somewhat of like a unique situation, since it really is a unique situation, given what's gone on with this over many years and the current status of this. So I'll open it up to commissioners, if any commissioners have any questions about it or comments about it. What's being proposed to handle the required open space set aside. Again, we have to look back at what the 2004 subdivision regulations require.
Jeff,
Yes, Joe?
Joe Spadalotto, my internet connection dropped out near the beginning of this while you were describing the 40% set aside and how much of the open space was going to be allocated to the 3 houses that are built. I missed
Yes,
it.
so it needs to be 40% of 4.04 acres, which comes out to 1.62 acres if I did the math correctly. And that's what would need to be listed and noted, as Attorney Roberts mentioned, would have to then be set aside if this the remainder parcel is either modified into a building lot or is proposed for re-subdivision.
And would that 1.26 acres be designated somewhere on the plans now as open space, or sometime in the future when whoever owns the property decides to do something with it?
I mean, my thought was that it would be the latter, because you don't know whether they're just going to use it as a single house lot, in which case that would be all that would be required, or if they're going to, you know, subdivide it further, in which case you could tack on the 1.67 onto whatever is required for the subdivision of the balance.
We would have it noted on the land record what would be required minimum to account for the required open space relative to that 4.04 acres that was developed. If that makes sense.
Well, for the original subdivision, there was area set aside as open space, correct?
Yeah, it was shown on the survey, but it was never conveyed to the town. And with that whole subdivision having been lapsed, it's basically all rolled back into an 11.67 acre parcel. It's likely that they would want to convey the same property as open space, because my recollection is a lot of it was wetland. But at this point, it hasn't been identified because there was no 1.67 acres that was specifically allocated to those 3 lots that were sold.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Sid?
Sid Blodgett. Rich, so if this open space set aside occurs 10 years from now, would the owner / applicant come before the Plan and Zoning Commission for that discussion and decision about where that open space is going to go, based on whatever criteria are on the books a decade from now?
I would say yes.
Okay. My second suggestion or concern is we recently approved a multifamily development on Crystal Pond that had some reference from, I'm guessing, 20 years ago about a lot being undevelopable, or had some clause in it that caused us some concern. I only suggest that we write this as clearly as possible, maybe in 2 different locations on the plan itself and in the records, the deeds. So again, 20 years from now, that commission has a pretty clear idea of what we were thinking today and knows how to proceed relatively easily.
That's noted. We can make certain that it is very clear. However way we wish to, wherever we wish to make it clear, that is certainly a point, Sid. Although, won't you still be on the commission in 20 years, Sid? So you'll remember it. Did you have a question, Amelia?
Will there be another plan made?
What do you mean by another plan,
He
Dave?
said he wanted it noted on the plan and on the land records. Is another plan being made?
I don't know what other I don't know what all the documents were that were then filed? Is it just on the land record then?
You can't go back to an old plan and write on it, it's my point.
If the plan's been voided, can it certainly, we must still have the file on it. And then we have the land record. So Sid's point then is we just want to make certain it's very clear. So if somebody in 20 years is wanting to develop it and accesses the land record, it's very clear however that needs to be placed. And let me ask Rich Roberts, would that suffice to, if we have it very clearly there in the land record? Would there need to be any other records to put this on, any other files at Town Hall?
Well, I think you'd want to put it in the zoning file for the subdivision. I think the fact that the prior subdivision approval has lapsed makes it hard to go back and write on it that something is going to be required going forward. But if you put it into the into the zoning file, as well as essentially a notice on the land records under the name of the current owner, clearly indicating the requirement that open space be dedicated as a result of the prior conveyance of the 3 lots, that any future buyer would be on notice of that requirement.
Okay. Yes, Delia?
Since I have to follow up on it, I'm just not sure what you mean by the zoning file. If it's a vacant property, they don't have street file on vacant properties.
Well, you probably have a file for the subdivision.
Yes. Yes, but after so many years, the town clerk will throw them out.
We'll put a big notice on, do not throw away.
I've tried that, it doesn't work.
Save forever.
Is there a deed or a more permanent land record that a new buyer has to go into the town hall records to look at?
Well, that's why I was suggesting a notice be recorded on the land records under the name of the current owner. Essentially a caveat that, you're buying it subject to this obligation.
That's what I would have thought you meant, but when Sid said he wanted it on 2 places, I was trying to figure out where the other place was.
Well, I think Sid was mentioning to make certain that wherever things need to be noted, that they're noted so that way it's clear whatever files people may go to. But, certainly on the land record, we would very much have to put it. Okay. Anything further from commissioners? Or what is the will of the commission relative to, I'm sorry.
Jeff Marcotte.
Yes, Jeff.
I have a question. I guess I can direct it at everybody listening. I'm fairly new to the commission, as you all probably know. This set aside, was it 1.26 acres or 1.76 acres that should have been done way back when, in 2004, since it was a stipulation at that point? Isn't there a way we just take that property now and be done with it? I shouldn't say take the property, but put the property in a separate set aside now and be done with it, so that 20 years from now there isn't an issue with it and not a problem, as Sid pointed out. And it was a good point.
Rich, did you want to answer that as far as doing it the way that you propose versus right now we have no plan that has the open space really?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably should have been done back at that time, and it probably should have been allocated to the phase that contained those lots. So that at the time the 3 lots were sold, the open space attributable to them would have been either conserved or dedicated or deeded to the town. I don't think there's any place on the survey of the now expired subdivision that indicates where 1.67 acres would come from. So, I thought it was probably most equitable to, essentially require that at the time anyone wanted to use the remainder of the property, that they and the commission agree on where that 1.67 acres would come from, because my recollection is that there were 2 or 3 kind of larger conservation areas in that that subdivision, and maybe one smaller one. None of them that matched up exactly with what was required for these 3 lots. So it would be difficult at this point for the commission to say, you know, we want this 1.67 acres right now. You know, since it hadn't been located or identified at that time.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah, just one more question, Jeff, Joseph. The remaining land that's now been voided as a subdivision, the amount of land, which I don't recall how much that is, but would that qualify for a future landowner or even a current landowner to be considered as a subdivision as a major, or is it small enough that it's a minor subdivision?
It would be a re-subdivision. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And re-subdivisions are handled as major subdivisions.
Handled as major, okay.
Yep.
Can I clarify?
Yes, Delia?
Whether it's minor or major doesn't matter about the acreage, it's the number of lots they're proposing.
But any re-subdivision, Joe, has to go through a major subdivision.
Right, I just wasn't sure how big the land area was that.
Let me see here. Is that
12 acres.
I forget how many acres the original one was.
That's okay, Jeff. I think you answered the question. It would be considered a re-subdivision and it would have to go through that process anyway. Thank you.
And the reason is that we did not want people to come in with piecemeal minor subdivisions and get around then the whole point of what a major subdivision is. So we purposely said re-subdivisions need to be handled as major subdivisions.
Thank you.
So, any other questions from commissioners? Otherwise, what does the commission wish to do? And I'll note, and I didn't note this when I opened up this agenda item, that Doug Porter is recused for this item. But basically, if I heard correctly, our job would be, as proposed, as Attorney Roberts proposed, that a clear notation on the land record be made that if the current parcel, I forget how many acres it is to be re-subdivided or modified into an approved building lot, that there needs to be, I think it calculates to 1.66 acres set aside. And that's separate from any future set-aside requirement that might be required in the regulations at such time.
It looks like Delia has a question. Oh, all right.
Well, I just want to see it so that way we can further discussion if the commission wishes to go ahead. I just need a motion if we wish to move forward, and then we can have some more discussion and a vote.
Just let us make the motion to accept the proposal to make a notation on the land records to ensure that the 1.6 acres of this open space proportion are utilized in any future land use of that property. Although I like Jeff Marcotte's approach, I understand perhaps why we don't want to do that right now, but that's my motion.
Is there a second to Joe's motion?
I'll second that. Dave Morse.
Dave Morse? All right, for discussion, did you have something, Delia?
Yes, when you say to make that an approved building lot, I just want to clarify that when you take what was the open space and what was the previously approved building lots, and you merge them all back into one, there's no more building lots. So now to make any of it, even if they want to build one house, then you have to go back through subdivision, which, because it's been subdivided, it makes it a re-subdivision by definition. Is that correct?
Even for one?
Because it's
One
remaining
lot?
land from a property that was subdivided.
I think so. Isn't that how re-subdivision would be, Rich, then? It's already been subdivided once, and even if they want to make one lot, the entirety of that lot?
We've seen this with
Does
Dr. Blomberg and with Gabrielle remaining land, and they had to go through subdivision. But would this be subdivision or would it be re-subdivision? Because I think that should go on the notice to make it clear.
We were clear about re-subdivision in.
Yeah, I mean, the subdivision's expired, so it's re-subdivision.
Right.
Okay,
I just want to be clear when you say, because you said re-subdivision or make it into an approved building lot.
right, because that's what was proposed.
One process.
Right, so, but it's otherwise very clear as far as the re-subdivision part of it. Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? I'll go through the roll. Let me just. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
okay, I wasn't here. Nancy Frazier,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte,
Nay.
David Morse,
Aye.
Fred Rich,
Aye.
and Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
I take it that the ayes pass, so that motion does pass. I guess, Tina, are you the one then, or?
Usually.
Deal? Okay, so then you'll take care of whatever magic you need to take care of for the
Sure.
plan records?
Yep.
Look, you're gonna rush up right now to the vault and take care of it?
No.
Oh, okay. And I think that may be, finally, after many, many years, the completion of everything that needed now to be done with this former Minchoff subdivision. So I think we've actually closed that at this point, after a long time of having to deal with the various issues. All right, let me just shift to another big file. The next takes us to the public hearing. This is agenda item 10. This is number SP 64004-24. This is ND Swadia LLC doing business as Woodstock Country Store. This is a special permit modification to a prior approved special permit number SP 3969802 at 1484 Route 171. This is a proposed Woodstock Country Store and gas station with apartment below. I'm going to go through a bunch of housekeeping items, so just bear with me because we need to make certain we have all this stuff on the record. I will mention to people about a public hearing. If you're not aware of what the rules of a public hearing are, then please note this is the opportunity during a public hearing for the public to ask questions or provide comments. I will be, as is the practice, we will be limiting people to speak, that is members of the public, because of time constraints in general that we have at our meetings. We'll give people to speak the first time 4 minutes and a second time 2 minutes. However, if you're recognized to speak, and again, you have to be recognized, you have to speak to the public hearing item, which is the special permit. If you're choose to speak about something else or go off topic, that becomes out of order. You won't be recognized to speak a second time unless you're providing some new information or wish to ask a new question. If you wish to say the same thing a second time, we will not recognize you because you've already had the opportunity to speak. The time limits don't apply to commissioners and don't apply to staff and don't apply to the applicant and the applicant's representative. We'll go through a couple of items here. One housekeeping item, just so it's clear in the record, this is a modification of the special permit. However, as per zoning regulations, Article 5, Section B, we follow the rules of a public hearing for a special permit, even though it's a modification of a special permit. I will also note for the record that Article 3, Section B, subsection 3, item D, allows for gas stations in the community district only by a special permit, hence why we're dealing with this. And just to remind people that our commission is acting under authority granted to us by Connecticut general statutes, especially Chapter 124 and relevant town ordinance. And as always, our purpose for the zoning regulations is to promote public safety, public health, and public welfare, in addition to many other things, but those are key items that underlie what we do. We do have The public hearing notices, we have previously put the public hearing notices in the local newspaper. However, we had to reschedule the public hearing. And so we did have a public hearing notice posted online within the required time period. It was posted online at the town website, which is in keeping with the governor's executive order 7B. So we have met that. And we'll note that for the record. The other is, as required per Article 5, Section B, subsection 5, property owners within 500 feet of the proposed parcel have been notified. We do have documentation that has been provided to us about the notifications that went out, and the notifications are required to be sent. And we actually do have listings here of U.S. Postal Service certified mail receipts to show that things have been mailed as required. I'll also note for the record that Article 5, Section B, subsection 5 does require that signs be posted on the parts of the parcel that have street frontage, which means 2 signs should have been posted, Route 171 and Barlow Cemetery Road. My understanding is, Tina, they have been posted. So we will note that for the record. The other is that, to note for the record, that this application was indeed received by the Planning and Zoning Commission back on May 21st at a regular monthly meeting, and that is in accordance with Article 5, Section B, subsection 1, item E, in case anybody is paying attention to that. And thus, we have met that requirement. This is a complete application other than some other documents we're waiting to get from other agencies. And Tina, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it for the record. The fees have been paid?
Yes, they have been.
So we will note that for the record as well. In addition, let me move this here. I will note for the record, so it's noted up front, so everybody understands this. This public hearing is going to need to be continued beyond tonight. At a minimum, we are waiting for approvals from Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency, Northeast District Department of Health, and I believe updated state DOT approvals, in addition to anything else the commission may ask or that we find is required. So I just wanted to make certain people understand that this public hearing will have to continue so we can wait to get other documents. And then at a later point in the meeting, I'll explain the timeline that we have relative to continuing public hearings, given the fact that there's an executive order that grants us additional time, and Inland Wetlands approval pending gives us even more time. I do need to state documents for the record. It has been made clear that we do have deadlines for submission of documents, including from the public, and including we have to follow the governor's executive order that things need to be posted no later than 24 hours before a meeting. There may well be some documents that we have received. I know that for a fact. After these deadlines that could not be provided to commissioners and could not be posted, those we will not be able to bring up formally as far as a lot of discussion. I do want to caution about trying to bring up for discussion tonight documents that the commission has not yet seen and that has not yet been made to the public, just because it really wouldn't be fair for purposes of a full public hearing to be able to do that. And we would then need to have to redo discussions once then we continue the public hearing and go through those subsequent documents. I will note there's a page and a half on my list of documents I need to state for the record, so just bear with me for this housekeeping. We have the application to modify a special permit. We have my letter as chair to the applicant and to the applicant's engineering firm, dated June 18th, as to why the June 11th, as to why the June 18th public hearing could not happen. I know the commission is aware of that. We have the public hearing notices. We have documentation about, as I mentioned earlier, property owners with 500 feet having been mailed notifications. We have the special permit number 3969802, approval dating from June 1st of 1998. It's always interesting to go back and read old documents. We have the applicant's project description dated March 30th, 2020. We have a development review checklist dated June 5th, 2020. We have a property survey that is noted as or signed off on as May 30th, 2020. We have a site plan, which is the big gigantic map. We have that last revised as of June 3rd, 2020, at least the copy we have, and that's been posted. We have a design review comment and resolution form dated June 5th, 2020, although it looks to potentially be missing a page, which I'll get to during the public hearing as a question I will ask. We have letters from Delia in her role as the NECOG Senior Regional Planner. So hopefully I got that right. And I have them dated March 26th, May 13th, June 9th, and June 17th. We have a stormwater drainage analysis. Initially, we had a 51-page document of March 30th. It now is an 80-page revision, if I'm correct, of May 20th. And I hope everyone read all 80 pages. We have stormwater operation and maintenance manual, June 3rd, 2020. We have an erosion and sediment control bond, proposed June 5th, 2020. We have a traffic assessment from Burton Engineering, June 5th, 2020. We have a letter from First Selectman Jay Swan regarding traffic report request, June 10th, 2020. Next page. We have letters from design professionals, that's the town's engineering firm that we hire, May 14th, June 12th, and an email June 5th. We have a letter from the state DOT, November 13th, 2019. We have a notification from the state DPH, I think the Drinking Water Division, June 30th, 2020. We have an application that was submitted to NDDH, not an approval, but an application submitted that is listed as April 3rd, 2020. We have a letter from Jen Beams, a member of the public, June 11th, 2020. We have a letter from members of the public, Frederick and Marilyn Fisher. I don't think there was a date on that. We have a letter from Grace and Richard Burrell, July 13th. I will note for the record, so that way it's clear, yes, we are waiting for Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency approval. Am I correct, Tina? They're in the process of doing what they have to do as an agency.
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. We will get their report when we get their report. There is a new approval, I believe, that's needed from DOT. There's an NDDH, that's public health approval pending. Actually, I've already noted that. I did mention that, and I'll ask this of the applicant or the applicant's representative from Burton Engineering. This development, the design review comment and resolution form has a number of different pages to it, and there are some documents that are listed 1 of 4, 2 of 4, and 3 of 4, but I did not see 4 of 4. Is there an actual 4 of 4, or 4 of 4 is just a blank page? I know, actually, I know Stephen Kuhl, you're here from Burton Engineering. If you wanted to answer that, just so that we're clear what documents we have and don't have for purposes tonight.
Yes, Chairman. The pronunciation of my last name is Peichel, please. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Peichel. But I believe
there is a 4th page to the design resolution form.
Okay, I don't know if we have it in the file. It wasn't online and it wasn't in the meeting packets even previously. So I don't know if we received it or if it's
What's the date, please?
June 5th. I just want to make certain we're all aware, including as commissioners, what documents we have and don't have, so it's clear on the record. So what that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll find that out. If we have it, either way, we'll make certain we have it. And for our whichever meeting we continue this, we'll make certain that we have that page 404. So I'll note that. One thing I do want to ask is, and I'll ask this of the applicant or the applicant's representative, I did not see any formal separate written waiver requests. Are you planning during a public hearing, not tonight though, to submit such waiver requests? Because that's very important for the commission to have on the table during a public hearing. So I
Yes.
just want to ask.
Steve Peichel for the applicant. Yes, we plan on submitting the waiver as discussed.
So we'll just need to make certain we have those as a separate written document provided to us. And that can be submitted to Tina or to Delia, so that way we're following the provisions of the zoning regulations. And I will note that we did receive a letter from a member of the public this week, but it came in after the deadline, did not be sent out to commissioners or posted, and so that will become part of the record in the next meeting packet. And we already have noted that. For all of that, what I'm going to do, that's all the housekeeping I need to do. That makes certain that's all on the record. So I'm going to open it up as in our usual fashion to staff. I guess that will be you, Delia, if there's anything you wish to state or whatever as far as things. And then I'm going to open it up to the applicant or the applicant's representative for a presentation. We have documents here that we will share and show on the screen so people can see them. And then I will open it up to commissioners, and then I'll recognize members of the public in our usual fashion, how we proceed. So Delia, the floor is yours.
You addressed my comments in my written memo, and anything new that's been submitted, I haven't reviewed it because it was after the date for the meeting.
Yep, just so that way we can hear it. So any additional documents, Delia, you've received, you're aware of, again, past the deadline, we're not able to get them up online and not able to get them out to commissioners. So that will be, those will be further documents that will be provided to commissioners, and certainly all documents that are not considered privileged communications are put up online for each meeting on the planning and zoning webpage. So, so we will deal with that. Do you have anything else other than whatever we get into? Okay. Otherwise, I will open up to the applicant or the applicant's representative. If you could just state your name for the record. If there's documents you want us to show, we'll call them up on the screen, and that way we can go through them. And that way, again, all these documents otherwise are on the website. But we do have, commissioners have the documents that I mentioned. So I'll open it up if, or Mr. Peichel, if you wanted to give the presentation.
Stephen J. Peichel for the applicant, Burton Engineering.
Thank you for coming tonight.
I'd just like to thank the chair for the summary of documents that were presented.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. I did literally spend 5 hours last night going through everything, so.
Is that all?
We do. But we appreciate getting documents, so thank you.
Okay, if I could please direct the commissioners or the commission's attention to document drawing C 2.0, existing conditions plan. I'd like to give a short summary of what is existing and what is proposed.
So you're talking about this proposed, or what says preliminary and final site plan, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir. Sheet number C 2.0.
Okay. And we'll call that up on the screen. Let me just get my big map together here. And you said, I just want to make clear, you said 2.0?
That's correct. That's the sheet.
Okay. So we'll try to I don't know if we can enlarge it. Yep, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to acknowledge and see if the commission, everyone on the commission can view the document and see it.
I just also want to make certain that everybody can on their screen. So is everyone seeing the document that's up there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead and proceed. I think we'll just try to move it around as best as we can to be able to see it. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we have here is an existing conditions plan that the single-family home that is 2 stories and approximately 1,406 square feet. There is currently 2 bedrooms with a basement. We have a setback of 13.1 feet and also a commercial building, which is 2 stories with a basement, which is approximately 2,190 square feet. On the first floor, we have a convenience store. It was a former restaurant with 40 seats. On the second floor, it's vacant, former dance studio. And this building has a setback of 47.6 feet. The site is mostly wooded. There are some streams and wetland. The delineation was by Joseph Thoreau. The flags, there are flags located on the survey, as you can see. If you look just below the figure that says lot area, we have wetland delineation lines. In terms of driveway, we have on Route 171, we have a 2-way for the store and a driveway for the house. On Barlow Cemetery Road, we have a 2-way for the store. So that in general is what encompasses the existing condition site plan. If I may, Mr. Chairman, could I go to site plan C2.1?
Sure. And I think what we'll try to do is if we're able to blow up or magnify a little bit so we can just see some of the area here as best as we can. Of course, when you have a big, gigantic map, it's a bit easier.
And again, Mr. Chairman, I would like to acknowledge if everyone on the commission can see the proposal as described.
Yes.
Are we able to see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we confirm the date on the drawing that you're using to see if it's the same as the one we got in our packet, please?
The last revision date I have is June 3rd, 2020. Is that correct? On D2.1? I believe that's the one being shown on the screen.
That is the current. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
This is what was submitted, but obviously there has been a subsequent submission that we won't speak about this evening, but we will in subsequent meetings. But yes, the applicant is aware that we are currently viewing the June 3rd submission.
Okay, so we'll note for the record that what we're looking at now, we're going to be looking at some revisions on some new documents that we will then see. So, okay, but right now this is the June 3rd.
I have a question, Dave Morse.
Yes, David?
Okay, okay, I was looking for a date. What date in the corner says 10/22/19?
We'll go along the side, the right side.
Oh, yeah, I
And
see
there's
it.
multiple revision dates.
Yep.
Yep,
Okay, yeah, I'm clear, thank you.
okay. All right, please
Mr. Chairman,
proceed.
may I continue?
Yes, please, go ahead.
What the applicant is proposing is to demolish all existing buildings. What we are also proposing is a 1-story walkout basement in the rear. We are also, which is has been subsequently revised, but I won't mention that because we will discuss this on subsequent meetings in August. We are proposing a first floor 3,000 square foot convenience store with food prep. We are also proposing a basement that will be subdivided in the following way. It's about 1,400 square feet with two-bedroom residential, and also 1,600 square feet of storage capacity. And again, I will just acknowledge that this has been revised subsequently, and we will review all the revisions on the subsequent meeting in August. We are proposing a canopy for the pump distribution system. It's approximately 24 feet wide. My apologies. Yes, 24 feet wide by about 71.5 feet long. It has 6 columns, and it has a gable roof. The clearance for the canopy is 15'5", and it has a roof height of approximately 77 feet, which gives it a total of about 22.5 feet total from existing conditions ground elevation to the top of the canopy. We are proposing 2 driveways, one on Route 171, one-way, and one two-way. We will keep existing to what is existing conditions currently. We are also proposing a fuel system with 3 islands, 6 fueling positions, 3 grades of gasoline, auto diesel, and 3 UST 1,500-gallon tanks each. We also proposing a freestanding monument side that is approximately 32 square feet, and 1 trash enclosure to facilitate any waste stream that would be coming from the building. There will also be propane for sale at the convenience store, and we're proposing 20 parking spaces for the total facility, and I could break that down for if you would like. There will be 2 spaces per every 200 square feet of retail space, which is 15. And the apartment will have 2 spaces as well. That gives us a total, and also 3 spare for the total site, which brings us to a total of 20 square feet or 20 spaces. There are issues about grading and drainage and circulation that I'm going to hold on to the next meeting, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what the applicant is proposing at this time. If we could go to the next sheet, which is C 2.2. And it is labeled Grading, Utility, and Soil Erosion Control Plan. At this point, Chairman, I would like to refer to the design professionals' peer review comments for zoning, compliance, engineering comments. And I'm starting on page 2 and starting with question and answer number 8. And I'm going to proceed to go through 27.
All right, let me just pull this document out and note for the record which document we're looking at. So we're right now on the screen, we have sheet C 2.2.
Correct.
And then the design professionals document you're referencing is the one that is dated June 12th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So I just want to make certain that everybody knows, including commissioners, that design professionals document. And that's the one you're referring to that has items 1 through 27 and kind of a checklist.
That's correct.
Okay, so I just want to make certain there's, do commissioners see which document we're referring to from design professionals?
Yes.
June 12th is design professionals letter. So I just want to make certain that commissioners, so we're set then with what's on the screen and set then with the document, okay? All right, please go ahead.
Okay, what I would also ask permission to do from the chair is to only address questions that are deficient in the opinion of Suzanne Choate, who is the design professionals peer reviewer.
Yes, if you wish to do that.
I will. Okay, so I'll start with question 8.
Okay.
And I will read aloud what the question is, and I will provide an explanation of where we are in the process of, let's just say, submitting documents. if I will, if you would.
Yes,
Include in
Please.
submitted documents, excuse me? I thought there was a question, my apologies. Include in the submitted documents an approval letter for Northeast District Department of Health, not yet provided. I would just want to bring to the chair's attention a document that I received this evening from the Northeast District Department of Health and dated July 16th, 2020. It is a list of deficiencies on our application that we will be working on and to provide for the next meeting.
okay, so we'll look forward to whatever additional documents relative to that then. And we'll note that for the record.
Thank you.
Documents.
The next question that I would like to address is number 10. A written report is required from Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency, not yet provided. We did have a meeting on July 12th, and really the meeting was about 6 questions that one of the commissioners, Marla Butts, brought up with regard to the drainage report. All of those issues, as we see it, were addressed and will be submitted for the record on the August, I'm not sure, well, it'll be submitted on the next Inland Wetlands August meeting. And really there are 2 things of note that we should just review with the commission, just so they are aware of what has been changed and what is being provided in that meeting. The 2 things are the following. With regard to the detention basin, if we could just pan to the weir of which is in the back left corner of the detention basin and enlarge that, please. Back left corner, where you see the triangle and it actually shows riprap.
Yes.
If you could please center that, thank you. Can everyone from the commission see the area that I'm speaking about? Where the
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So the area is understood where we are on the site.
Yes.
Okay. The one thing that the commission was concerned about was storms that were conveyed by the 100-year storm and what would be the effect of the back edge of the embankment just below the weir. What we agreed to in that meeting was to take the riprap that is currently at the weir and continue it down to the toe of the slope to provide for any erosive flows that may occur in basically conveying any discharges from the basin into the wetland. That way, there would be no rilling of the slope, there would be no erosive flows of either grass or soil that could be generated by those flows. So that was the first condition of the approval for inland wetlands. The second and last condition of approval was there is a design review comment and resolution form dated July 12th, 2020. And it was agreed there are 5 points in the design report that we need to provide very direct and very detailed locations of where the information for the comments are in relation to answering the commission's questions. So we will be providing a revised design review comment and resolution form to Inland Wetlands that makes the detail of these 6 questions.
So that would be some additional documents we'll look forward to.
What I will do, Commissioner, is to revise the date on this particular resolution form. And I will put exactly that it is revised to what date. And I will provide detailed records of where the information is located within the drainage report that is currently revised to July 6th, 2020.
Thank you.
Okay, if I may go to question number 15 of Design Professionals Review Document. Number 15 says the following: provide a T2 certification by the land surveyor for topography, not yet provided, indicated on the survey. This particular point was resolved in email with Suzanne and also Tina LaHoy. What we have done is we provided a Mylar and also a PDF file that shows the subject survey being certified for topography with a T2 note that notes that it has been certified for topography.
Okay, and we'll note that that will be some additional documentation we'll get. Thank you.
Well, you do have it in your possession, and what I'll do is merely update the comment resolution form to saying that, describing when it was provided and
Okay.
what the revisions were.
Okay, that's fine, sure.
The next question I'd like to review is the question number 21. Provide maintenance schedules and final stabilization per the 2002 Connecticut Guidelines for Soil Erosion and Sediment Control. Appropriate schedule provided as a separate document, recommended inclusion of the schedule summary on plan to be on file. I have also communicated with the Design Professionals peer review and directed her attention to our updated erosion control and sediment procedures, which is on this document. If you look, if you could, Jeff, just pan to the bottom right corner, and there are a set of notes that are titled Erosion and Sediment Control Procedures.
Yes, a lot of text that's there. Yes, okay.
Now, this is the item that is in question. So unfortunately, Suzanne did not see that.
Okay,
Directed her to review it. She has subsequently reviewed it, and she says it meets with her approval. And I can provide a date for that in an email, also listed to Tina, of Inland Wetlands.
yes, yeah, we'll note that as some additional documentation we'll get. Okay, yes.
Thank you. Could we also move to the next question that I'd like to resolve with you is question number 22.
Okay,
Again, provide riprap sizing calculations. At the time, it was sized for a smaller riprap. What we have subsequently done is to size the riprap in keeping with a D50 or a 5-inch at the 10-inch outlet from the basin. Jeff, if you could please, and my apologies, if you could just go to the top left corner where the outlet pipe is for the basin.
are you referring to me when you say Jeff?
Oh, Chairman.
We have two Jeffs on the commission, so you just refer to me as chair, because otherwise we have Jeff Marquardt as commissioner as well, so that's why we just want to make certain who you're asking.
Yeah, my apologies, Chairman, but we're on the wrong page. We should be on page 2.2.
So 2.2.
Which is the next sheet. You kind of panned up a little bit too far.
There it is.
Okay.
Yes.
If you could just
Excellent.
move the pointer to the outlet pipe that comes out of the basin.
See where that is here. We're just getting it all set on the laptop to move around.
Okay, well, thank you for your help.
Try to enlarge it so we can see things better. Where in the map are you referring to? Just so I can ask so we can.
Sure. If you go to the detention basin, it's at the top left corner. You see there's a triangle with some hatch in it.
Oh, yeah, okay, way up there at the top left.
Right, exactly.
We'll try to zoom into it. There, is that showing it better?
Yes, sir, thank you. If I could just ask the commission if they can see the items that we're talking about on the screen?
Are commissioners able to see the magnified view?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, this is the riprap that we're talking about. We had initially sized it for a smaller size riprap, and what we have subsequently done is sized it for a larger flow, which is per the Connecticut 2004 guidelines. And that has moved to a 5-inch stone, which is a modified riprap, in keeping with what the Connecticut DOT is requesting that we do. This is something that you will see this revision in our drainage report, and we will take great pains to direct the commissioner's attention with comments in the comment resolution form that we will provide, that will be updated, that will list not only the drainage report sizing of it, but also the plan reference. And finally, for the last question that we would like to address, and that is question number 27. This is entitled Additional Comments, Revised Plans and Documents are as follows. Please provide accident data within the traffic report and expected impacts of the development. With addition to accident assessment, the traffic assessment will be sufficient as to the traffic report, zoning regulations, Article 5, Section B.2.P. The state has indicated the use of historical data for background traffic flow instead of doing counts. Reason being is that the traffic is not normal and now because of COVID-19. I'm not sure if Delia, you did post this document, but I do have an email from Jay Swan, who is the first selectman of the town of Woodstock. Is that part of the record?
Yes, it is. I noted it for part of the record relative in his role, I guess as like chief of police, relative to his input. Yes, that is part of the record.
What I would like to do is just read into the record the final paragraph that just summarizes his opinion with in regard to question 27 of the.
Let me just pull that document out and note again the date of that here. I have it in here. Let me just find it.
So when you're ready, what I could do is summarize that.
I'm just going to note for the record so that everybody has it in here. So, find it in the pile of records. Let's see. That is dated. I have to pull it out. But you have a copy of. I'm just going to find it. You have a copy of the date on it. If you don't mind, just stating the date
Sure.
for the document here.
The date of the email is Wednesday, June 10th, 2023. I'm sorry, 4:34 p.m.
Okay. Thank you. Yep, I found it. Yep. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I will be reading the final paragraph before the salutation. The main desire is to have a full traffic study completed is, after the station is functional, I know that Barlow Cemetery will become very busy. That is now and will become more so the shortcut for Eastford Center. This will be especially true for drivers using the route to purchase gas and return home. Another concern I have is in the future, an accident with possible fatalities occurs. An attorney could have a field day as part of an investigation. If it came out that the traffic study was waived and that the waiver was agreed to by the town, with concern would be our liability. These are just a few of my thoughts. Thanks, Jay Swan. So in response to that, to supplement Mr. Swan's comments, what the applicant would provide is the following. We actually have an updated email from the peer review engineer that is dated June 5th, 2020, and then subsequently revised July 9th, 2020. Per the engineering review, she has read through the Connecticut District 2 letter that was dated November 13th, 2019 from Andrew Murill, who is the Special Service Section of the Bureau of Operations. And in this letter, he states specifically about what plan was received and what his opinion is. And if I may summarize the first paragraph for the record.
Yes, please go ahead.
A final determination has been made, and we find the proposal acceptable with one further comment. And the one comment is the proposed stop sign and do not enter signs on the exit-only drive must be mounted on separate posts. What you will see, Chairman, is a drawing that's been updated on the traffic plan, which shows the signs' locations, and it also shows a graphic of the signs. So we will, in the next meeting, update this comment. We would also like to supplement this with a revised traffic study, which has been supplemented with this letter by Eric Ho, who is a traffic engineer for Burton Engineering. Now, Suzanne Choate has reviewed both the letter from the State District 2 Special Services Section Manager, Andrew Murill, and she has also reviewed the drawing that is dated October 22nd, 2019, and also the current drawing that we have in our set. And she finds that there is really no differences from what the State DOT has reviewed and what is being currently proposed. And it is Suzanne's recommendation that the measures or the metrics that are the regulations for this particular traffic study have been met. And we plan to submit her letter dated June 5th of that.
We'll note that for the record, and those are documents that the commission hasn't yet seen, so we'll note that those will be upcoming documents.
Okay, to finally wrap up, and I thank the commission and the chair for their patience. The Swalia family have basically had this or purchased this property since 2002. They have been a loyal member of the community, and they are respectful of what I would characterize as Woodstock's town and gown. They plan to update their facility and make it a resource to the community, and they plan to make an investment here, which is in keeping with providing that resource. So I would, at the next meeting, I would encourage the members and the commission to approve the application. We have met with Inland Wetlands, and we are in the process of getting their approval. So whatever you decide at this point, what would be appropriate for the application, I think what you should be is respectful of the commitment of the Swalia family to the community. And they have done several charitable things that would be in keeping with the business community, what I consider noteworthy. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would hand it back to you.
Thank you. I'll open it up to commissioners. I'll start out with some questions I have, and then I'll open it up to commissioners. Can you let me know what waiver requests you are planning to submit, so that way the commission and us know, as well as the public, what documents we'll get for our written waiver requests?
We will be submitting a revised plan set that will incorporate all of the comments, and it will also cover the waivers that are in keeping with what we plan to submit. So I don't think I want to outline it at this point because I wouldn't want to provide inaccurate information, but you will receive the waivers at subsequent meetings.
So we're not going to know now what potential waivers you might be seeking. Okay, but we'll go through during the public hearings the waiver requests. So we'll note for the record that unknown waiver requests at this time then. but there will be some coming. We've already noted, let me just see, I just had some questions here. One of the questions that I had pertains to lighting, and this is relative to zoning regulations, Article 6F. And I had some questions regarding the lighting plan that's, I believe, on sheet C 2.4. And I know the commission some years ago spent many, many months, more than that, discussing about lighting and discussing about when we updated the regulations prior relative to lighting. So I just wanted to go through some questions about that. One is in our regulations, it does talk, and this is in regulation F4B1, where it talks about total allowed lighting. Is there, and maybe I just didn't see it on the this C2.4, but is there a listing as part of a lighting plan? What is the total lighting being proposed, so we can make certain it's compliant with the regulations with regards to the 1.25 lumens per square foot of finished developed area, in addition to 4,500 lumens of base lighting?
If I may, Chairman Steve Peichel for the applicant.
Yes.
If you note if you just pan up so that in center around the canopy, I can help you understand what our projections are for lighting levels.
Well, this is sheet 2.4, because I was looking at what the total proposed lighting is. I didn't know if that's on the sheet somewhere and I just missed it.
There are keys on the plan which show the locations of both time as well as lighting fixtures within the parking area. But there are also lines here. I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but I would like to point them out for your review.
But I'll get into that as a separate question. I just wanted to, for my question, if you don't mind, we have the total proposed lighting. Is that what's all in this lighting schedule?
Yes, sir.
So that's all the listing of the lumens that are being proposed total. I just wanted to make certain as far as if it meets our regulations, it meets our regulations. I just wanted to make certain I was aware. So everything that's listed as A1, A2, C1, S1, W1 on this lighting schedule, which is called luminaire schedule, that's, if you add them all up, that's the total lumens being proposed. Am I correct? Am I reading it correctly?
Sorry, I interrupted you.
I just want to make certain I was reading that lighting schedule correctly, that all of those lumens sum up to the total proposed lighting.
It refers to the quantity of lighting fixtures that are placed on the plan currently. So there's a key which shows the fixture, and then there is a description of what that particular symbol is.
I see.
And then there are, right.
So for example, A2, which lists 8,028 lumens, we look at how many A2s are listed on this plan, and that tells you the total of A2.
Yes,
so
sir.
we would be able to calculate what the total lighting proposed and check it relative to the maximums allowed per the regulations then in that lighting schedule.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make certain I was reading that correctly.
You are.
I appreciate the answer. That helps clarify things. Another one is that under the gas canopy, you're proposing more than 10-foot candle lighting, and you state because that's consistent with industry standard. One thing I will note is that zoning regulations FB4 state the maximum intensity of illumination under any canopy or other structure shall be no more than 10-foot candles at any point. And in fact, I remember when we added this warning into the zoning regulations a number of years ago, we specifically had discussions at the time about canopies, including gas station canopies. we spent a lot of time having discussions about that. But if you're proposing more than 10 foot candles, which would not be compliant with the regulations, that would potentially be a waiver request that you would be looking into?
Yes, sir, but I'd also like to bring one more thing to your attention.
Yes, please.
Okay. That is a commentary on lighting levels within the canopy area. So you will note that there is a line that has described with an A that is placed on the line. And there's actually a leader that leaders out to A. And on that line, that is what's called a spill. And that's the amount of light that actually transfers to the paved surface. And that spill at that particular point will only generate 5 foot candles. Now, I would certainly want to comply with anything that the bylaws requested. However, there should also be a stipulation within the bylaw of what is called the lighting level. And if we are within the criteria for 5 foot candles, we would certainly ask the board for a waiver if that's the desire of the board.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that our regulations talk about under the canopy, not the spill outside. So I just wanted to bring that to attention.
I understand.
For that, we will certainly discuss the waiver request and make it part of the public hearing. I just wanted to mention that as well. Another thing is under lighting, and perhaps I'm missing it. What is the height of the poles of lights that are going to be on poles?
Again, I refer you to the key. And then there's also even more detail just above it. There's detail that has to do with the fixture itself. And it also details the foundation. But the height of the pole, and again, you're going to have to, my apologies, you're going to have to zoom up because I can't even, I have a half scale map and I can hardly read it myself. So if you could please zoom up onto the schedule, which shows the lighting in the bottom right corner, if you could please. So, okay, whoops. Yeah, it's a little bit fidgety. Okay, if you could just center that in the screen, please. All right, I believe that the height is listed for each particular fixture, if I'm not missing it. You just zoomed past it, I think. But that is in the schedule.
Okay, I just wanted to make certain that I'm reading it correctly, that those are indeed the heights.
You are.
Okay, I just wanted to make certain in my own mind. And then one item is our regulations do talk about not wanting to have lighting above a certain intensity spill over the property line. And we talk about in F5A Roman numeral 2 in our regulations, lighting shall not shed more than 0.25 foot candles over a property line. If I'm reading this map correctly, there's a bunch of different lines that you have outlined that talk about A being a 5 foot candle line, B being a 1 foot candle line, and C being a 0.5 foot candle line. Yet I see that some of the lighting spills off the property line into parts of Barlow Cemetery Road, and some of it will be 1 foot candle, and then some go down to 0.5 foot candle, which technically would be more than what our regulations allow beyond a property line. So I don't know if that's something you're aware of, or perhaps I'm not reading those things, the lines correctly that spill over onto Barlow Cemetery Road.
That is correct. And what we would be proposing for this is to provide house side shields for those lightings that cast into Barlow Cemetery Road.
Okay, so then that would be addressed as far as what goes, the intensity of then what goes up, what goes beyond the property line, especially onto the road then. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. So that answers that that question for me. So I just wanted to make certain I was reading it correctly. And then one item I just wanted to make certain I was clear on this was any of the freestanding signs, including that monument sign, are all going to be externally lit. They're not going to be internally lit. Is that correct?
Yes, we have revised the plans to depict that. There will be no external lighting no internal lighting as discussed.
Okay, I just wanted to make certain that we were aware of that. Otherwise, I think the various proposed signs all come within compliance otherwise for the maximum allowed square footage and that type of stuff. But I thought that's how I read this, but I just wanted to make certain I was understanding.
Yeah, yes, this is one of the items that is addressed in the comment resolution form, and what we will do is we will direct your attention to the drawings that depict it in the location.
No, I appreciate that. I just wanted to make certain I was clear on it. I'll open up to other commissioners. Oh, I'm sorry, Delia, you had your hand up?
Yes, I just want to clarify, maybe Attorney Roberts could weigh in. The commission.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. I'm having difficulty hearing Delia. If she could please speak up or speak closer to the microphone.
Sure, yes, just
Yes.
try to speak loud and that way we can all hear you.
I wanted to clarify for the commission, and perhaps Attorney Roberts could weigh in. The Planning and Zoning Commission can only waive application requirements, not standards. And the lighting regulations, as far as I understand them, are standards.
I don't know if Attorney Roberts is still on the call. You're referring to the McKenzie decision
Yes.
that talked about the difference between waiving application requirements and regulation standards.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if he's still
No,
on.
you're correct.
Okay, so we would have to note then any waiver requests we get are specific to application requirements, not standards.
Well, either that or depending on what the waiver is, whether there are standards by which the commission can evaluate the waiver. I mean,
But we do have in the lighting regulations a section about waivers specific to lighting. That was put in. We do have that. It's in, where is it here? It's actually in F8 as part of Article 6, where we talk about the commission may waive the lighting requirements. And there's a whole list of, like a page of them, of requirements that would need to be met or determined to grant a lighting waiver.
yeah, I mean, I'll look at that. I mean, I see what you're talking about, but I think, you know, waivers where there are standards that have to be applied to determine whether to grant the waiver or not are within the authority of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Kind of general subjective waivers of zoning requirements are outside of the scope of the Planning and Zoning Commission and would have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
And I believe when we dealt with the lighting regulations back when, we did have this review from a legal point of view by a former town attorney who had told us we were okay putting that waiver section into the lighting.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at them, they are, you know, sufficiently clear that it would provide a legitimate basis for the commission to grant a waiver of those requirements. I don't know what other, you know, the applicant hasn't indicated what other waivers they were looking for, you know, other than the lighting, so I can't tell you whether they're ones that you can grant or not.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, for the applicant, Michael.
go ahead.
It is not the intent of the applicant to waive any standards for either zoning or standards for lighting.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll open it up to other commissioners. Just let me know. You just state who you are because we're not able with the screen with the stuff up to see everybody on the. Hope now we can see more people. But I'll open up. You know, any commissioners, any questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, through the chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Claypool.
Dwight, and then Joe, you wanted to speak after? Okay, yes, please, Dwight, go ahead.
I have a question for Mr. Peichel through the chair. If the NJPA or any other codes require that type of lighting under the canopy, or if it can be modified?
Mr. Chairman, if I
Please, have to respond, please.
We do not intend to ask for waivers for the lighting. We intend to comply with what the standards for the bylaws are. So it's our intent to make sure that the site is safe and also in keeping with any safety standards which we are going to be using for this facility. So if there is any deviations, we will make sure that both the Inland Wetlands Commission understands this, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you, Mr. Peichel.
Thank you. Joe Adaletta, you had a question?
Yeah, they're relatively short, so if I'll just list the three of them. I read in the summary, the description that the operating hours, and this was in the lighting section, the lighting would be on a half hour before and after the operating times of 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. One, I want to ensure that those hours are noted clearly on any special permit or review, so that the hours, if they have to change, again, have to come before the commission as a modification to the special permit. Two, my question is, will the canopy lighting on the pumps go off at the 9 p.m. Or 9:30, allowing the half-hour time frame indicated in the summary? Would they go off by 9:30? Those are the two questions for the lights. Just a general question about fire protection in the building. I may have misseen anything, or perhaps it's not even required for any type of fire protection in the building. And then I did have a question about the internally lit sign at the entrance, but that's already been addressed. So thank you for correcting that. That's it.
If you wish to answer, please go ahead, Mr. Peichel.
I just wanted to thank the commissioner for his question. With regard to question one, the operational hours of the lighting, if it's the board's desire to only keep the lighting on within operation hours, we can adjust any timing for lighting between the hours of 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. to comply with that.
I'm sorry, were you asking, I missed that last part. You were asking?
If it's the board's desire to keep the lights on from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., we can adjust the timing of the lighting systems to comply with that. If you don't want us to go over the half an hour, both in the beginning of the day and the end of the day, we would certainly be willing to make that adjustment for the timing of the lights.
I think we say here, lighting shall be turned off or if necessary for security purposes, illuminated at a reduced lumen level 1 hour following the close of business in our regulations. So I guess that your point, Joe, is about how long lighting will be on. Is that, I was trying to make certain I followed that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood that, particularly the lighting under the canopy, which sounds like it'll be the brightest of the overall site, would be turned off at the end of the operating hours. I'm looking at page 6 of the March 30th, 2020 project description brochure.
Yes.
And that should show the lighting from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. with a half an hour window on either side. Just confirming what's there, not necessarily requesting a change, just confirming that the lighting under the canopy would be turned off as well.
If I may, for the applicant, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please go ahead.
If it's the board's desire to operate this particular lighting at a lower level and to keep it in a safe place where we would be respectful of any laws that may be, outside the bylaws for Woodstock, I would want to not necessarily turn them off at the beginning and ends of the day, but if I could just request a reduced level.
Okay.
And what we could do is we could modify the project description for the canopy lighting that would basically state that, if it's the board's desire.
Well, this commissioner's desire is to keep the lighting as low as possible when there's no operation of the store or gas pumps.
If I may, Joe, is that your first name?
Joseph, yeah?
Yep, we should just for formality, we'll just refer to us as, instead of our first names, we can just refer to each other as commissioner. And,
Certainly.
yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question, Commissioner. We would request in the project summary an adjustment to lighting levels beyond operation hours, 1/2 hour at reduced levels, if it's the board's desire.
Okay, well, that sounds appropriate.
We certainly don't want to have any safety issues on the site that would prevent any law enforcement if they needed to go into there for some reason where lighting would be off.
I'm just trying to distinguish between the canopy lighting and security lighting. Security lighting makes sense around the building and the pumps, but the canopy lighting is higher and brighter than other lighting around the building. And I'm just checking to see if the intention is to keep them at a significantly reduced level or off when the pumps are not in operation.
The applicant's concern would be that if there is an event that took place at a very sensitive place or in and around the pumps, that there would be no way for any emergency services people to conduct any investigation. So we would, again, request reduced lighting levels to facilitate any safety requirements.
Okay.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
With regard to the second question, which if you could please repeat it, I took a note here, but I just want to make sure that you reiterate it correctly.
Sure. It's relative to a general question about fire protection for the building.
Yes.
If it's required, or for fire marshal, will you weighing in? I'm assuming over the fuel pump canopy, it'll be the standard fire extinguisher system built into it, but I didn't see anything related to the building itself.
Okay. And for this particular question, I believe that was your third question, if I'm not mistaken. With regard to fire protection within the building, what Burton has designed this particular facility for is in keeping with what's called IBC. And in that particular code, they have certain thresholds for square footage of what fire protection system would be required. And that particular square footage that we are proposing, which is 3,000 square feet, does not meet the requirement.
Okay.
Just to follow up on your question, Joe, has the fire marshal reviewed and provided input? Maybe I missed it. I didn't see a report. Has the fire marshal provided a review, or is it required?
It should be required.
He has
It should be required.
He has, but I don't have anything in writing.
Okay, so I guess that's something, if he's reviewed it, we're waiting then for him to provide us, and certainly the applicant as well, whatever his review is. Okay,
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Burton Engineering and the applicant would look forward to any comments from the fire marshal in this regard.
Thank you. I think the second question that I had mentioned was about ensuring that the operating hours were put on the Mylars or some clear document so that it was very evident and easily determined sometime in the future as to when the applicant has indicated their desire to operate the store.
For the applicant, Chairman,
Yes.
to answer the commissioner's question, what we will do in terms to facilitate this process is we will place the operating hours on the cover sheet of the plan, which is the hours of between 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. And this should cover the requirement. That's where most of the requirements for the submission are. So we will place that on the cover sheet, and we will also note in the design resolution comment form of the location of this note.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? I know there'll probably be some additional ones that will come as we get some further documents and be able to review. Sid? Sid Blodgett?
Sid Blodgett. You mentioned earlier in the presentation that the store is approximately 3,000 square feet. The two-bedroom apartment is approximately 1,400 square feet. Where or which of those is the 1,600 square feet of storage space allocated to the apartment or to the store?
That's actually the apartment, and I would just like to make one note to the commissioner, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, please, go ahead.
Okay, the subsequent number of 1,400 square feet has been amended because we have an existing structure that has approximately 1,406 square feet. And our question at this point would be to the commission with keeping that area consistent with what is a residential use on site, if it's the board's desire.
Did that answer your question, Sid?
Well, perhaps. So the residential component is approximately 1,400 square feet and 1,600 square feet of storage for a total of 3,000?
No, that's incorrect. That's actually been, my apologies, Commissioner, that's been revised, and you will see in the architectural plan that revision.
Okay, all right. I can wait until that gets done.
Thank you.
The second question I have is, are there any reporting requirements related to the underground storage tanks and or commercial septic system?
Yes, on both questions, and the applicant will be providing those approvals in the next meeting.
Okay. Along with the approvals, in the future, are these tanks required to be inspected every year, every other year, every 5 years?
There is an operations manual that will accompany the building permit for the particular tanks that are in question. There is also a license that needs to be held by the people that actually work at the store. They will be trained in keeping with whatever system that is currently proposed on the site. So in the event of any type of an event that happened that may be emergency related, the person that is in the store will be able to call upon their training and react to whatever event that may occur.
Okay.
Sid?
Personally, I would like those records available in the future as they're done to be filed in the town hall and available to the public. Primary reason is we'll have Woodstock residents living below grade, which is probably at a lower elevation than fuel tanks and the septic system, at the same time using an on-site well to supply their drinking water, sole source of that. And I'm concerned that people in that apartment need to have their clean, safe, healthy environment to live in. And if I had underground storage tanks above me or near me or beside me, I'd be concerned about that.
If I may address the commissioner's question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
The president of our company, Kalisko Burton, had given a wonderful discussion of all of the safety systems that are resided with both the distribution of fuel and also the extinguishing of any events that may occur in the operating areas where fuel is being dispensed, as well as if there was a spill on the site. And Mr. Burton outlined all of the safety systems that were involved. And if I may address the question of the commissioner with regard to, let's say, for example, a proposed or the proposed tanks that are available, what would happen in an event, let's say, of a leak. So what we have is a double wall steel tank with a monitoring system in that interstitial area between the two walls that will monitor any type of vapor And typically, it's been my experience that when we do get calls on these particular events, they're actually condensate, because what happens is you have a cool face from the soil that's around it, and you have a warm space from where the fuel is located. And typically, when you introduce a warm face and a cool face, there is usually like a condensate that accumulates. That would generate an event. But if there is, let's say, for example, a leak that did perhaps, the tank was punctured, or there was some type of leaking mechanism, that particular probe would actually monitor it as an event, and there would be an alarm that went off in the building. So for that particular part of it, if I may, I think fuel, let's say leaks, would be addressed in that manner. I could go through, if you would like me to, in terms of the protection mechanisms that are in place for the wells, as well as stormwater that is generated from the parking areas to the detention basin, if it's the desire of the chairman to outline that.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, just if I may, the system which protects any spills within the paved area, particularly from, let's say oil or antifreeze or anything that could happen as a result of filling the tanks, that could potentially flow to the catch basins and then in turn to the detention basin. What we have proposed are two measures. The first measure is that there's actually deep sumps within the catch basins that distribute the stormwater to the detention basin. And then the second one is, and if we could go to the plan so I could help the chair or the commissioner with this question, I would just like to go to C 2.2. And I'd like to point these measures out to the commissioner's question.
Can you just state which sheet was that?
My apologies, that's sheet C 2.2.
2.2, okay, thank you. There it is.
And if I just may mention also to the chair is that these particular measures have also been outlined to the Inland Wetlands Commission, and we have taken great pains to make precautions of any spills that took place within the paved area. Now, if we could go to zoom up onto the detention basin on the bottom left corner, if you could, please. That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. A little bit higher, please. A little bit higher. That's perfect. Thank you. So the commissioner's question is with regard to fuel or any other materials that could potentially flow from the paved areas. There is actually a oil water separator that, if we could just pan over a little bit so I could see the note, please, Chairman. No, I'm sorry, to the left, please.
Oh, right at the way edge right there, okay.
Okay, let me just, I've got to turn. Right there. Okay, let me just.
You're referring to the one that says the 3,000 gallon oil water separator?
Yes, yes, sir. Okay, so the question is from the commissioner is what protections that we do have as a second stage of protection for the paved areas. The question is for second stage, we have a 3,000 gallon oil water separator. And inside this separator, it's a series of baffles. And in the baffles, it actually projects from the ceiling of the tank to the bottom. And as you know, if there is a fuel that would, let's say, potentially leak within the drainage system to this structure, whether it be oil or whether it be gasoline or petroleum, anything like that, it would actually be, it would float to the top. So it would be confined to this particular separator, and there would be no way that the substance, whatever it is for that matter, wouldn't allow, the structure would not allow it to drain into the basin. And then this tank has an OEM that will be recorded when the building plan is issued for a permit. And this will have a measure or an interval in which it is cleaned. There are 3 cleanouts for each chamber that will go to the surface. Excuse me. And these tanks are typically cleaned annually. And so if there is any material that would be dangerous to not only the resource areas in the back, but to any residents that may live within the complex, they would be cleaned annually. And the sumps are also cleaned annually. So in the event that anything happened and spill from this area, they would be cleaned and the measures would be taken care of. And if I may, I'd also like you to pan up by the canopy itself, if we could, Chairman. This will also, it's like a second stage measure in and around the pumps, if you will. So if we could just zoom up onto the canopy, perfect, thank you. So within this area, let's say, for example, there is an event where someone had left the nozzle, the fueling nozzle, connected to the car and then drove away. For this particular event, it's a very small measure that needs to be mentioned. In this area, there's in and around, let's say, the perimeter of that concrete apron, there are, and you've probably seen this because you've gone and filled up your car and you've seen these pretty much at every gas station. There's a collection area that would pick up and intercept any fuel that might spill as a result of these kinds of events. So the operator of the facility would be instructed to put down a light material that would pick up any of this fuel that would potentially be collected as this type of event. And then finally, same question, if let's say, for example, there was an issue at the pumping islands themselves. I'd just like to say that none of these pumps actually hold fuel within them. The only time that fuel comes up and actually is engaged at each particular station, if you will, is when there is an event that is recorded and they dispense fuel. And then subsequently, no fuel resides within that pump. It resides within the tank. So let's say a potential for any spills from the pump directly, it wouldn't be in keeping with any safety standard that our guidelines that we have used to design this at. So with that, hopefully that's answered your question, Commissioner, and I would ask the chair if that facilitates the questions that are currently being asked.
Do any further questions from the commissioners? I want to make certain all the commissioners have an opportunity, if they wish right now, to ask any questions. There'll certainly be more opportunities to ask further questions as we go along, reviewing more records and things like that. One question I have, although I know the answer, but I just want to make certain it was clear on the record. The state has probably no lack of regulations and rules regarding gas storage tanks and gas stations that will have to be followed regardless of our own zoning regulations. I'm assuming the state agencies will make you go through whatever process regarding gas storage, gas dispensing. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we have submitted an application for that, and it's currently being reviewed.
Okay. I figured that was the answer, but I just wanted to make certain we had it on the record. Is there anything further from commissioners? Delia, you had a question?
Goes back before we were talking about gas and stuff. We're talking about storage. I thought I had read somewhere in the project description that the basin storage was for the business, not for the apartment.
Correct. Again, my apologies. If I could defer to Callisto Burton for this question.
Good evening.
State your name for the record, sir. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, it's Callisto Burton. Yes, the computer makes it easy to be there. Yes, the basement storage, and there's a plan. I think it's the last plan in the set. The 1,600 square feet is for the store. The apartment is 1,400 square feet.
Then I have another question.
Yes, Delia.
The application in many places calls it an automobile service station. But from my review and all of my discussions, it's a convenience store with a gas station on it. Is there any service being provided?
No, you're correct. It should have been called automobile fueling station with convenience store, not a service station. It's a nomenclature I guess we picked up at some point.
Okay,
It's a convenience store, motor fuel store with motor fuel sales with convenience store.
and looking at sheet C 2.3, which is labeled truck path plan, and even nice pictures of the trucks, it looks like you guys have mapped out that for fire truck circulation, looks to be more than adequate for fire apparatus to get in, to maneuver, to turn, to get out. It looks like you've taken that into consideration as far as the amount of paving and the radii that these trucks take to make turns, especially the long ones, get in, get out from either Barlow Cemetery Road and from 171, if I'm correct. It looks like those have been thought through.
Yes, this is Callisto Burton, and the secret about having a successful fueling operation is that the delivery truck can get in and out. So that's how we design it. And this
And the
is
fire trucks, it looks like, are certainly taken
Right.
into consideration as well. Okay. Is there anything further from commissioners? What up? I'm sorry, did I miss a commissioner? Okay. I just want to note our time. We do have a limit to how long to be here at Town Hall. We usually try not to be here past 10:30. It's basically 9:50 now. We are going to be continuing this public hearing. For the reasons I mentioned above, so there's certainly going to be, an ongoing opportunity in that regard. We do have some remainder business on the agenda, which really isn't much at all or lengthy, but I can open up to some members of the public. I am going to have to limit how much we can hear from members of the public tonight because of sake of time. But certainly we will be making certain that there's adequate provisions as we continue the public hearing for members of the public to be weighing in if they wish. But if there's nothing further with commissioners and without objection, I will open the floor to some members of the public. But because we do have some remaining items we do need to take care of, we do basically, when we reach like 10:15, we're going to need to pivot to finish the rest of the business meeting. And then be able to leave town hall since we can't be here all night. I will let members of the public know that you do need to be recognized. And again, you can have 4 minutes to speak the first time. And if I were to recognize for a second time, that would be 2 minutes. If you do wish to speak, you do need to state your name for the record. If you can let us know that you would like to speak, you don't have to right now. You certainly have that opportunity as we continue the public hearing. But if you do wish to speak, if you can do whatever that hand symbol is so we can know that you might be interested, and then we will recognize you. Some people are on our screen not by their names, it looks like by their emails or some phone numbers. So it looks like I guess we have one person who's listed as Moneyball 4. If you could, we'll unmute you. If you could please state your first and last name for the record. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, thank you for taking time to recognize me. My name is Maggie Houlihan. I'm a resident of Witches Woods Lake. I also serve as treasurer for the tax district, and I'm not speaking as a member of the board. I'm speaking as a private citizen. I just wanted to let you know that I'm very concerned about our quality of life on Witches Woods Lake. I'm concerned about any impacts on water, wells on our lake and Bungie Lake. I'm very concerned about any impact on traffic. And I'm concerned about our natural habitat. We just live in such a beautiful, quiet, serene place, and a gas station to me doesn't seem to fit the environment. We live in the quiet corner of the Last Green Valley. It's it's rare and it's beautiful and it needs to be preserved and protected. Anyone who lives in this area or visits this area feels very strongly about it. We have herons, we have fish, we have frogs. This past winter, my husband and I were walking and there's 3 bald eagles on the lake, Witches Woods. I mean, it's just amazing. And then at night, we walk frequently at night to see the stars and the moon. The fireflies twinkle like Christmas lights in the underbrush. It's just stunning. And then, you know, you hear the owls calling. I mean, this is something that doesn't fit with a gas station. Really, it doesn't in any way, shape, or form. And I'm very concerned about water quality. Bungie Lake feeds into our lake. We have no way to protect ourselves if anything should ever get into Bungie. Their water comes over the dam. There's a spillway that discharges right into our cove area. We have no way to protect ourselves. If something gets into Bungie's water, it's going to come into Witches Woods Lake. And the traffic is a major concern. I wasn't quite sure if this traffic assessment or if there was a full traffic study. But we've had a resident that was almost killed at the intersection on 171 with someone coming from the country store area headed towards Eastford. And my daughter was hit by a drunk driver right in front of the country store several years ago. The speed of the traffic and the increase in truck traffic has been dramatic over the last year or two. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the night sky and really just protecting our waterways and the natural beauty. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming tonight. If you could please let us know by raising your hand on the Zoom if you wish to speak.
I just did.
Let's see. If you can just, we have listed Rachel. We'll unmute you.
Hi.
If you could please put your first and last name for the record. Thank you for coming tonight.
Of course. I'm Rachel Donnell. I also live on Witches Woods Lake. And I would also say that I agree with what Maggie the Houlihan just said previously. I agree very strongly. I do have some questions. I'm hoping someone could address them. If this seems to be approved, is there any way of a compromise, instead of having 6 pumps and a large area of canopy, to having perhaps 2 pumps, which keeps it more of a country type atmosphere? That was one question. The other question is—
We'll just take one question at a time real quick. That would be,
sure.
I believe, something, if I'm correct, Ilya, that's something that would have to be discussed by the commission and the applicant and the applicant's representative during the course of a public hearing. And then decisions get made as far as after public hearings are closed and the commission then deliberates and makes decisions.
My next question, thank you, Commissioner. My next question is, since the country store presently sells beer, are they allowed to have a gas station that sells beer?
I'm not aware. The state regulates, doesn't the state have to give license for sale of alcohol and oversee gas tanks and gas stations? That would be up to the state, I believe. I don't know.
They already have a license, I believe they can get
They
it.
can continue.
You know, once the new building is up and going, they should be able to transfer that license into still the same property, it's the same people. I don't believe there's really much of a change.
It's the same business.
Probably just update the paperwork for the new building if needed.
Right. There are many gas stations that do sell various things, so that would be up to the state, is my understanding. They oversee that. Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, from what I understand, I think it's uncommon for a gas station in Connecticut to also have beer permits, and I would like that to be looked into as well. Okay, and then my major concern really is partially what Maggie Houlihan was saying, is the traffic. right now, currently, when I drive past the country store, I am often surprised at how there is no warning, no sign, nothing saying, driveway ahead or something like that. Because it's on a curve, I'm always concerned that a car coming out of the country store will emerge when I'm trying to drive onto 171 to go home. So my concern is the location on a curve. The visibility is really poor. It looks like there's nothing going to be changed in the road to have a turning lane or something of that nature. So if a car's turning into it and I come up at my normal speed, I'm afraid I'll rear end the car, or the other way around. I'm coming on Route 171 to go home and somebody's coming out of the gas station or the Valley Country Store. I'm concerned about accidents. I think it's going to increase the traffic and more likelihood increase accidents, and I'm concerned. The other thing is that having a big oil tankers.
If you don't mind just wrapping up, because.
Yes, I will definitely do that. The other thing is having oil tank trucks and that type of thing coming on these roads. When I think about roads like Bigelow Hollow and those areas having big trucks, it's really difficult. So when I think about this, I really am uncomfortable with it, especially since Thompson, which is a matter of a few miles, 5 minutes away, has a gas station. 5 minutes away, there is a gas station. So
thank you for your comments. I do have to restrict for the time limits. So.
That's okay. I do thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Pikul. Thank you.
Is there somebody else that we have? Yes, we have Jock McClellan. We'll unmute you and please state your name for the record. Thank you for coming tonight.
Can you hear me?
You need to speak up or turn the volume up. Can hardly hear you.
Oh, that's unusual. And actually, the person you should hear is Jean, my wife.
We have you recognized.
Because I know she intends to
recognize one person at a time.
So has she raised her hand?
Well, I don't know, but you're on right now. So if you wish to speak, please go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to raise 7 quick questions for thinking about before the hearing. First, lighting. There's nothing that I see that determines the lighting, and that will be important in what happens at the corner. Secondly, safety. There will be a question about traffic coming out of the church when the academy students go in and come out. There will be perhaps some congestion there. Secondly, there's only a sign to prohibit people from getting out on Route 169, and I'm not sure a sign will do it.
Are you referring to the gas station on?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm referring, can we not comment on the other thing brought up at this meeting?
You cannot. That's not what this public hearing is about. That's out of order.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Okay.
Okay, forget it.
All right, that's the public hearing that's coming up next month. Okay, is there anybody else who has their hand up? We're just scrolling through to see. And we have, your hand is up, but we, show up on the screen here?
No.
There we go. If you can just state your first and last name for the record. Thank you for coming tonight. Do you have to unmute yourself?
Yeah.
You have to unmute yourself. There we go. Just please state your name for the record. Thank you for being here.
Jeff, I'm not sure. This is Sandy Pandolfi. I'm showing as Woodstock 1229. Are you referring to me?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much.
We haven't unmuted you.
I have 2 thoughts. One, I tend to think that 6 pumps is a little bit of an overkill. And I also would like a clarification on the hours of operation. Are we saying that the gas station is going to be operable from 5 in the morning till 9 at night?
Yes.
Chairman.
Yeah,
Okay.
please, Mr. McHugh?
Okay, so, and we're also saying that it will possibly be lit a half an hour before and a half an hour after the hours of operation, correct?
Mr. Pekil, do you want to answer that as far as the hours of operation again?
I will answer that question, and I would ask Mr. Burton if he so desires to also contribute to this. I am told by the applicant that the hours of operation are between 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. And also we are requesting for lighting to take place a half an hour before and a half an hour after the prescribed operational hours.
Okay, and if I may go on record as saying, I think that is too early and too late for this area. 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, that's fine. But I think to have lighting from 4:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night, to Maggie Houlihan's point, that is not what Woodstock Valley is about. It's a quiet residential area. That's why we live here. And I think with that hour of operation and that amount of lighting, we're now turning it into a commercial area. And that's all I have at this point.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Is there anybody else who does wish to speak? Yes, can you, well, we'll unmute you here, although you have to unmute yourself, I think. Can you please state your first and last name for the record? Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. This is Beverly Brazil, and Mr. Commissioner, I thank you for your earlier comments on the lighting, and I just want to reiterate my concern and desire that the business would adhere to the town's dark sky regulations.
Thank you.
If I may just offer one thing, Chair.
Yes, please, go ahead.
We have offered, being the position that we are spilling over onto Barlow Cemetery Road, if it is the board's desire to provide house side shields that would take the lighting levels out of there, that's what we will do.
And if I may,
Regulations do specify property line lighting that spills over, so that's why I raised it before. Are you all with your public comments? Didn't want to cut you off. Oh, okay. All right, here. Is there anybody else from the public? We're just scrolling through the list. We have a lot of people attending. I don't see anybody. Do you, Crystal?
No.
I'll open it up to the commission as far as where we stand, unless there's further things from the commission at this point. There's going to be a number of documents we're going to be getting and updates, and would be as far as continuing the public hearing. I guess the issue would be, our option would be to try to continue it to the April 6th meeting or to our regular monthly meeting on April 20th. I guess it's going to depend upon when we can get additional documents relative also to deadlines we use as far as document submissions.
Chairman, for the applicant, please.
Once I'm done, yep, I'll recognize you. So we just want to keep in mind then as far as what we do relative to the calendar. But my question then to you, which may be what you're going to ask, is when we would be getting additional documents relative to our deadlines that we use.
I just want to make a minor correction to the chair. I believe you said April. I believe the next meetings will be in August.
Correct. We could do April of 2021, given how much time it seems the governor gives us. But the otherwise, it would be August 2nd, August 6th or August 20th. My question then would be these additional documents that we're needing to get, not the ones from other agencies we're waiting for their approval, like Inland Wetlands, DOT, Public Health, but other documents that have been mentioned that have revisions or whatever. Are those documents that either have been provided or can be provided before our deadline? Because our deadlines then for the August 6th meeting would be 5th, 4th would be the very end of would be July 27th, I think. Otherwise, because we do have deadlines for submitting of things, so that way we can get meeting packets out to commissioners, get everything scanned, get everything uploaded into the system. So I don't know how much time you might need to be able to provide additional documents, not the ones from other agencies that I know are outside of your control right now.
For the applicant, Mr. Chairman, we will provide documents within the prescribed deadline for the August 6th meeting.
Okay. So I'll open it up to the commission. We would have to take a vote to continue the public hearing to one of our scheduled meetings, and we usually do 7:45 p.m. for public hearings. David?
Don't we already have a public hearing on the 6th? Do we want to have 2 public hearings in one night?
We've done more than 2 in one night, but that is correct. We do have to be mindful of how much time we have. That meeting, if we do it on the 6th, is a special meeting, which would mean that business items wait until the regular monthly meeting. We could only then just choose to take up the public hearings. With special meetings, we don't have to add anything else to it. We don't make changes once the agenda is set. But I'll leave it up to the commission, what the commission wishes to do. That public hearing is for the Rusty Relic special permit. That's what we have on August 6th. Oh, I'm sorry, it's correct. That's right, August 20th, you're right, we did do that. So actually, August 6th, we don't have the public hearing for that. It's August 20th. So we're set. But it is a special meeting, meaning we can basically devote this meeting on the 6th, if we wish, just to this. That's one of the benefits of a special meeting. We get to choose the agenda items as opposed to our usual business items.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Make a motion that we continue this public hearing until our August 6th special meeting.
And you're fine, Joe, with 7:45 p.m. as far as?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that will allow us to do some of the meeting guidelines and rules. Is there a second for Joe's motion?
I'll second that.
Jeff
Dave.
Marcotte.
Who seconded? I heard several. Who was that?
I did. Dave Morse.
Jeff Marcotte.
I don't know who said. I think it was you, Jeff. But unless you guys want to fight it out.
David Morse and I both stepped on each other twice, so he's older than me, and I don't know how many more times I can step on him before he falls over. So I'll second the motion.
Okay, and I'll note that Commissioner Morse is taking it with a smile and a laugh. Probably smiling and laughing because he's going to get back at me somehow, so I would watch out. So motion by Joseph Adeletta, seconded by Jeff Marcotte to continue the public hearing to the August 6th, 2020 meeting at 7:45, although that meeting will start at 7:30. Is there any discussion on the motion on the table? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adeletta.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Nancy Fraser.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon. Aye. Jeff Marcotte.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Doug Porter.
Aye.
Fred Rich.
Aye.
And Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
That so passes, so we will make note of that. And then we will work with you, Mr. Picule, and about any additional documents, and then any other agencies that may provide documents, we'll get our hands on those as well. I will note for the record that and correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Roberts, are continuing this public hearing. We can use the governor's executive order allowing time as opposed to what state statute allows?
You can use either. I assume you're still within the time frame to continue the hearing. You opened it tonight. You have up until 35 days to close it. So you're within the
governor's executive order of you have a total of 90 days during which you can defer the start of a public hearing, continue a public hearing, and extend your post-hearing deliberation and decision.
Well, I think you're still within the timeframes where you don't need to use extensions.
Okay, so that's fine then. I just wanted to make certain we knew which we were using, so we'll just use the usual timeframes that we have then. So that is so done. So the public hearing is continued. I just want to thank everybody from the public who came tonight. And the applicant, I think, is here in the applicant's representatives. Yes, who's asking a question?
Yes, Steve Peichel for the applicant. The applicant and Burton Engineering would like to thank the board and the chair for their decision.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate your participating in the process and working with us. I know there's a lot of documents, so I appreciate your going through those with us. That means old business part 2 is moot right now. We'll get through ZEO reports. We do have stuff, I believe. Do we have stuff, Tina?
For the CEO report, I did not provide it in your packet, but I can tell you, in the last 6 weeks, I have approved 26 permits for a variety of things. 4 of them were new homes. I did approximately 6 inspections for zoning compliance, ENS bonds, and I'm working on approximately 4 complaints. So I can email out this report to everyone. I just didn't make it happen.
So if you could, please send that out to commissioners.
Yes.
And then we can go accordingly as far as that's concerned. So for any active complaints you have, you're in the midst of doing so. There's really no report beyond that. Okay. Do you have any office updates? Otherwise, I know we're moving forward with office stuff anyway, working.
Yes, we're just trying to coordinate there may be some changes in hours with the land use clerk that we're working through right now.
Okay. But otherwise, I know we're keeping track of where we stand with regards to the functioning of everything that we do. Although, oh no, that's Bill. That's Bill, so I don't have to say that. Is there any comments from citizens not on any? So of course, it can't be on the public hearing. But, okay. Budget review and bills. There are no bills for us to vote on right now. We have the treasurer's report. Remember, we're in a new fiscal year. So the numbers are going to look a bit different now, but we do have that. That's there. We're continuing to keep track of that, and also the legal line items in the land review account and our POCD account. Does anybody, any commissioners have any questions about the treasurer's report? I do want to thank the treasurer and assistant treasurer for keeping us up to date on this and providing the reports so we can do things in due diligence. 2 quick correspondences. We did get notified that Pomfret Planning and Zoning was going to be holding a public hearing yesterday, evidently, to address an amendment about defining what an agricultural food vendor is and to make it a permitted use. If anyone is interested in knowing what they did, certainly that info is going to be at Pomfret Town Hall. And then we have a notification in the usual manner. It's this lengthy document from the Connecticut Siting Council. Talk about going through paper. They go through lots of paper. Just notifying us, as they're required to do, that the Coatney Hill Road tower site, it looks like they're going to install 2 microwave dishes, 4 SAF radios, and related equipment at 157 feet up of 192-foot monopole. So if anybody is interested in that, there's all that information at the Connecticut Siting Council or whenever their meeting is relative to this. But we get notified of it anyway. That's all the correspondence that I have. That does take us then to Commissioner Rich's favorite part of the meeting, which is a motion to adjourn. I don't know if that is something we wish to do.
Move we adjourn.
Is there someone who wishes to join Commissioner Rich?
I'll second that. David Morse.
So motion by Fred Rich, seconded by David Morse to take daring action to adjourn our meeting tonight. I'll go through the roll call just in case there's any commissioners brave enough to oppose them. I know I'm not going to. Joe Adaletta?
Nay. Aye.
Sid Blodgett?
Aye.
Nancy Frazier?
Aye.
Jeff Gordon? Aye. Jeff Marcotte?
Aye.
David Morse?
Aye.
Doug Porter?
Aye.
Fred Rich?
Aye.
I knew what your answer was. And Dwight Reinowitz?
Aye.
So I believe that passes. We are so adjourned at 10:17 p.m. Thank you, everybody. And we will, in a few weeks, is it a few weeks that we're meeting again? I don't think on the calendar here. 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
We will reconvene and stay tuned for another meeting packet, and we will go accordingly.